You won't believe this story. Although Thomas was a bit miffed, he knew how lucky he was to work with the professor at Hopkins. But reality was harsh. Upon arrival at Hopkins, they saw walls lined with portraits of medical legends, and the professor declared ambitiously, "One day my portrait will hang here too." Little did he know, it planted a seed of ambition in Thomas. Just as they were striding toward the lab, the security guard, playing the role of the world's grumpy snowman, stopped them. Thomas had no choice but to exit quietly, passing by the statue of equality that seemed to mock his situation. When he strutted down the hospital corridor in his lab coat, everyone stared at him as if he were a Martian. A black man here? It was like a bad joke. Even the white supervisor treated him like the coffee-fetching intern. He was sent to fetch coffee, but thankfully not all whites were snooty, like Dr. Helen Tosick. She was a cardiology legend. Today, they visited the pediatric cart ward where Thomas saw kids with blue faces. The children sat curled up on their beds. Helen explained this keeps blood from their legs, aiding their breathing. Turns out these kids suffer from incurable cyanotic heart disease, a congenital heart defect. Their main artery to lungs was congenitally blocked, leading to chronic oxygen deprivation and blue faces like bears. The only cure was heart surgery to boost blood flow to lungs, but medical technology then didn't support it. With the medical technology of the day, the death rate for this condition was a staggering 100%. Helen, the compassionate doctor, invited the professor to tackle this challenge. The ambitious professor quickly agreed. The three aimed to revolutionize heart surgery, but baby hearts were incredibly delicate. The professor proposed experimenting on dogs first. The dog hearts are tiny, with vessels just 2 minutes 3 wide. But the medical equipment of the time was as useful as a rubber hammer. Every experiment ended in failure. Thomas was feeling the financial pinch and had to pick up odd jobs after work. During dinner, his wife mentioned wanting to find a job, but who would take care of the kids? Now that was a pickle. Reality and dreams are like parallel lines, never intersecting. Thomas looked at his wife with guilt. He didn't know how much longer he could stick to this medical path. 2 months later, they had nearly exhausted their supply of experimental dogs, yet the research had every time they squeezed the heart's blood vessels, the dogs would bite the dust. The professor had an epiphany. Thomas intently focused on the heart model, thinking, maybe it will work. Meanwhile, the professor's experiments failed due to imprecise equipment. Just as he was about to blow his top, he spotted the new breathing machine made by Thomas, which filled him with a mixed sense of frustration and hope. That day, a passing medical doctor was drawn in by the sight of bizarre little tools. He was shocked to see Thomas conducting surgery on a dog eyes closed. After countless trials, Thomas had internalized every detail of the heart's blood vessels. The doctor exclaimed, "Wow, I sure hope I can work with." Thomas smiled back, realizing that talent is the ultimate respect magnet, no matter where you are. But this truth didn't sway everyone during lunch. A lady added a little extra food to this medical worker's plate. This earned her the ire of a grumpy old black guy who sneered, "Don't think your white coat makes you better. We're equals, and I earn more." Coming from a research-focused background, Thomas had never heard of ranks among employees, so he rushed HR for answers. He learned he was a lowly third-rate worker, working 15-hour days, feeling burnt out. His take-home pay was just $68, and after all the expenses, he felt like he was walking on a tightrope. Even more disheartening was that he had been doing this job for 13 years. Could anyone truly lie for an ideal? It took just one throwaway joke from the professor to trigger Thomas' pent-up frustration like a firecracker. He immediately ripped off his lab coat and stormed out, realizing even though he loved this job, his family's well-being was far more important than chasing dreams. The professor had no clue about the hierarchy down below. As a successful upper-class man, how could he understand the struggles of those below him? Just as the professor frowned thoughtfully, a student called him over. Seeing the meter, he realized Thomas restored the blue condition in a dog. At home, the professor's wife chastised him for responsibility. He realized his big mistake. This was the first time in years he had to apologize in person. But this time, he didn't just snag them a monthly salary of $25. The hospital also paid back a whole year's wages and promoted him to an external technician. With that, Thomas stepped back into the lab, having put the past behind him. Now, they had successfully restored the blue syndrome, and it was time to dive into finding a cure. After countless nights of working hard together, Thomas suggested a bold idea. They could cut the collarbone artery and reroute it to the pulmonary artery for recovery flow. But pulling it 4 inches was extremely challenging, like climbing Everest. They began testing on dogs. The professor excelled in theory, but Thomas was reliable in practice. Thomas didn't let anyone down, and successfully completed this monumental connection. The professor couldn't help but exclaim, "This is a masterpiece." Next, they began their search for suitable patients. Since this was the world's first human heart surgery, the couple's child was running out of time. But after learning about the surgery's risks, they said they needed some time to think about it first. Then the couple headed to the church to pray. Upon hearing the news, the priest angrily rushed to confront the professor, asserting that carrying out surgery on a heart amounted to nothing less than blaspheming the divine. The professor politely showed him the door, but ironically, the dog's shunt ruptured just half a month later. This left both of them feeling utterly disheartened. What had gone wrong? One morning, Thomas woke up from a nightmare and rushed into the lab to tell the professor. He said, "I dreamt of an adult woman last night, but her voice was like a baby's." Hearing this, the professor suddenly had a light bulb moment, realizing, of course, a human heart grows with the stitch line. We require a novel kind of stitching technique. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting content.